Hi everyone, this is audap. Well, it's been a while since we looked at the Konami Arcade or Anniversary Collection arcade classics. So let's go back and look at Vulcan Venture, also known as Gradius 2, outside of Japan. Or sorry, known as Vulcan Venture outside of Japan, but in Japan, known as Gradius 2. And this is, of course, the arcade version. Let's take a look at our settings real fast. It's interesting, they call blurring scan lines. I'll leave the frame off. Alright, I don't know how far we'll get. Try to get as far as we can.
Deploy them all. Ease up.
Oh, yeah, good start, huh?
Deploy them all.
I guess the default controls are a little weird.
Deploy them all. Missile. Multiple.
Now, I believe for home consoles, there weren't really very many versions of this game in particular. I know that there was a original Nintendo release, which never saw a release outside of Japan. Same thing with the PC Engine release. There was a PC Engine release of this game as well. It appeared on some other arcade collections, mainly the Gradius collection that was on the PSP. So it's sort of interesting that they offered this game up, since I don't think a lot of people outside of Japan really had many memories of it, just because it wasn't really available. But it's a chance for people to experience it if they've never experienced it as well. So. I don't think I've ever seen the end of this game. I know it gets really, really tough, especially since this is the arcade version. I remember in the old days seeing previews of this game for the original Nintendo, which is a pretty impressive port. Or translation, I guess is not really a port. They weren't porting any code over from the arcade game, you know, it was all original code. I think it was in like a GamePro magazine back in the days when there was such a thing. No, sort of the popular meme pro tip comes from GamePro. And yes, even back in those days, pro tips were completely useless. That was the joke.
Shoot it in the head.
It's still the same joke nowadays. Ah, son of a bitch, I keep forgetting they actually run up to you and kill you.
Obstacle. Missile.
You shall never return alive.
Speed up.
Obviously, a lot of geeker influence with the Konami series and the Contra series, and just overall in general with many artists and many developers in Konami in these days.
Speed up.
God, look how difficult it is already. It's only like, what, stage 2? Stage 3? Oh no, it's just stage 2. Oh, bullets everywhere.
Missile.
It's pretty impressive that it's such a big game too. It's a multi-screen game. But you know, it was on its own arcade hardware, dedicated just to this game.
Shoot it in the eye.
I'll bash you.
Ugh, boy, that's a difficult game.
Speed up.
It's hard to do it without a full complement of power-ups.
Missile. Shoot it in the eye.
The art's still really strong though.
I'll bash you.
Not paying attention.
Speed up. Missile. Shoot it in the eye.
I'll bash you.
I know, it's crappy trying to take this on with just a pea shooter.
You made some crap.
Excuse me. Yeah. No point in continuing that game. Boy, that was terrible, huh? I think that's still fine using that.
Destroy them all. Speed up. Missile.
Yeah, I imagine it would take quite a few runs to figure out where all the power-ups are on this level, since it is multiple screens. And of course, I don't know what the order is, and where the ships show up that have the power capsules. And sometimes the fire dragons will also drop capsules too, but I don't think that's as reliable. There's some bit of randomness that occurs there when they generate.
Multiple.
Yeah, I feel like it's beautiful artwork.
Ego.
Oh boy, should probably reset that one. It's too early to die.
Destroy them all. Ego. Missile. Multiple.
It's a shame that they only did mono audio for this. All the music really is well composed.
Multiple.
Damn fire snake. Away with you.
Laser.
Ah, son of a bitch. Damn it.
Destroy them all. Ego. Missile. Multiple.
Oh my god. God, you have to have a perfect run on your first level. You really can't afford to make any mistakes. The second level really depends on having a lot of
Destroy them
power-ups.
all.
Let's see. Why am I... Oh, I think I know why. I'd rather have this be shooting missile. Rapid on. This can be power up. Yeah, that makes more sense to me to do it that way. Okay, that should help my brain deal with hitting the right button.
Destroy them all. Speed up. Missile. Multiple. Multiple.
Ew, boy, close for comfort.
Laser. Shoot it in the head.
Ah, son of a bitch.
Destroy them all.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was the safe spot or not.
Missile.
Clearly not.
Multiple.
Okay, never mind. I want to before I get myself killed again.
Laser. Shoot it in the head.
Oh, I forgot there's a save function too. I'll take advantage of that.
Multiple.
You shall never return alive.
Multiple.
Yeah, taxing the system. I guess this is a pretty ambitious game. It's also much more powerful than the original board that Grady's lived on. It was the same situation with Contra and Super Contra, is that they're both on the same basic board, but they managed to do much more with the art in Super Contra.
Shield. Shoot it in the eye.
I'll bash you.
Just in case. Ooh, now they're starting to shoot a bunch. And the more power-ups you have, then the more the enemy shoots as well. So it sort of scales a little bit here and there.
Shield.
You can definitely tell that this game has its roots firmly in Scramble, which is one of Konami's original arcade games. I always loved Scramble, but I never made the connection between Scramble and the Gradius series until much later. Now it's like it's completely obvious to me that they're basically in the same series. Oh.
Shield.
We're still waiting for a release of Gradius 3, either the arcade version or the Super Nintendo version. I mean, outside of Gradius 5, that's probably my second favorite Gradius game. But we tend to get 1 and 2 a lot, but not 3 and 4. And I think Gaiden really only appeared on the PSP. As part of the Gradius collection. But, you know, like how I'm going to play on the PSP anymore. The screen is tiny now. And I've got much larger screens for other systems. It's hard to go back to that smaller screen. You know, just like if you get a large screen phone, everything starts to look much, much smaller once you've gotten used to all that real estate. Oh boy, even the laser has a hard time shooting at all these chunks of ice. Oh my god. Oh, that was rough. The hard part is figuring out when to give your ship another speed power-up. Because there's no speed down, so once you go fast, you gotta stay fast until you die. Some of the later levels require you to have more than one speed power-up in order to navigate the way the screen scrolls. then you gotta be like extra careful from then on how fast your ship is. Although I think after that, the corridors become less and less narrow, so it's okay to be a little faster than normal. But certainly here, you know, I wouldn't want to have 2 speed power-ups here. I think it would be probably just too fast and I'd run into the walls more than I would avoid anything. I am happy to see that the R-Type series is also managing to continue on, since there's going to be another R-Type final game, although I don't know if they're going to call it that. But there'll definitely be a sequel to that game that appeared on the PlayStation 2. Oh my god. Oh, these arcade versions are so rough. What? Oh, yeah. I wish you had to go through that entire menu just to save and load. It'd be nice if they were just assigned like quick buttons. You could quick save and quick load. Because it's super fast. You know, to save and load. Or at least the loading's fast. The saving takes a second or two.
Shield.
I do wish there were more games in this collection. I mean, the SNK 40th Anniversary collection is like a much better value. I mean, they really went all out for that collection. Even including the original Nintendo versions of games and the arcade versions. And different regions. Oh. It's like, for like bang for your buck, it's like the SNK 40th Anniversary collection is the best collection they've ever put out. Although I'll say that the number of games is, while strong, not as strong as as this collection. In fact, I don't think there's really a bad game in the bunch on this particular collection. I think they're all actually really good. Whereas there are definitely some bummers on the SNK 40th Anniversary collection.
Shield.
But you know, I mean, that's just like the history of the company too. You know, if they were developing games that, you know, sometimes they were good, sometimes they were bad. Shield is so easy to reduce because it's generally anything in front of you with a wide margin, wide vertical margin. So things that wouldn't normally hurt your ship can consume the shield, unfortunately. It's like going through here wouldn't normally hurt my ship, but because the passage is so narrow, it actually takes some of the shield away. And I try to leave my power up on the shield icon at the very end. In case the shield does run out, at least I can have another shield that's easily enabled. But most of the things that you die to, it's not the shield wouldn't have done you any good, right? It's just a little extra insurance for enemies that are in front of you. But generally those are not the things that really bother you the most. See, I mean, that was just a straight up hitting an object. My shield really didn't do anything for me. I mean, it couldn't have done anything.
Shield.
I think I'm slowly learning the game, though. This is probably going to take more than a few sessions for me to completely memorize the game. Especially with my memory being what it is. Although for video games, I tend to have like a little special reserve spot for a video game. Well, certain video game items. I can definitely remember certain things in games in certain locations or places. But not all. And the things I usually remember are not the game that I'm playing. Yeah, and in this case, I've had very little exposure to this game in particular, because it wasn't all that readily available in any form in the States. Without having to go through some emulation, but emulation is not a guarantee. Sometimes ROMs are bad, and sometimes the sound's not correct or the speed's not correct. So I do like having these kind of collections that have been curated a little bit better from some professional developers. Plus, I like being able to play these games on a more modern TV. Not having to resort to using an RF signal or a composite signal, on a tube TV, CRT. I was never really all that fond of that technology. And, all the color reproduction and things are really, really well done on these modern TVs. Then the only thing that really hurts a modern TV is its refresh rate. Sometimes the refresh rate just is not as responsive. It's just the nature of the technology, but it's certainly gotten better over the years. And now your perception of the lag, whether it be there or not, is much, much more reduced. I mean, I don't recognize latency issues that much. Unless it's a game that I really, really know, very, very well. But usually my brain will compensate for lag that it perceives. And I think most people's brains do that. The only problem is if the lag happens at variable refresh rates. And so then it's really hard to compensate for, something that appears to be running at 30 frames and then 24 frames and 67 frames, That's definitely something difficult to do. Oh boy, that was rough. I didn't think I was going to make that one. Kind of too bad it's only one save slot, huh? I wouldn't mind having a save slot for every stage. That way if everyone just replays just one particular stage, I could just go back to that save slot stage. And since it's the arcade version, there's no like level selectability, or at least they didn't add it in. Yeah, I think just getting a 60 hertz emulated version is still pretty impressive. Especially on this piece of hardware. I mean, it can be a struggle to get an emulator to work on a Shield, which is basically what this system is. So, you know, hats off to the folks at M2. They really know what they're doing. You know? It's also kind of why I like these curated versions. They just tend to be more stable. You know, there's not a whole lot of complaining on emulation because it is all free work and volunteer work. So when something does get running really good, it's really awesome. But you know, I never really expect emulation to be, you know, the end all and the be all. You know, PC emulation. And sometimes if the folks doing the emulation are not that familiar with the original PCB, it can lead to a lot of emulation errors or sound errors, which you know, are not easily perceptible unless you've been playing the original arcade ROM for a long time, or the original arcade PCB for a long time. Because there are definitely times that I notice where the emulation isn't correct, and it's like, man, it really bugs you. It bugs you a lot when you see something that you know should be right, you know, be so done terribly wrong. M2 generally gets it right. I think they've only messed up on one or two things here and there. Like I think the emulation of Frogger ended up not being like 100% correct for whatever reason, and maybe it was just because the original arcade board they had was a bootleg. It was kind of hard to say in that case. You know, a lot of these ROMs, a lot of these PCBs really don't exist anymore. Or they're in such limited quantity, it would be hard to get hold of the original. And it was only recently that a lot of the Japanese developers and companies have started to archive their previous titles well. It was not an uncommon thing for publishers and developers to just, you know, delete source code. Just delete it or lose it. Which is it's a crazy thing to think of nowadays because there's lots of ways to prevent that from happening. But yeah, back then, I mean, if you needed space, then you just delete your old work. Sometimes you would delete the source, and sometimes it would be the only source. Ah, you little bastard! Damn it! At least the game will let up on the difficulty a little bit now that I'm down some firepower. It won't prevent me from doing stupid things, though. Yeah, I don't like to abuse the save state feature too much. So what I try to do is I try to just, especially in a shmup, I just try to put a save at the beginning of a level, because then it's just that's more of a quality of life feature. That way you can still be challenged with the game close to what the original challenge would have been like. Just get the convenience of being able to start from the beginning of the stage.
Shield.
I think it's a relatively good compromise. Rather than expecting a player to just play all the way through on one credit, you know. That would have been a feat even during its arcade run, and a person would have had to spend a lot of money for that to happen. You know, I think the only game I've ever really done that with in the arcade was the arcade release of Strider, and I think the first Contra. Of course, I couldn't do it now without a little refresher, but I think I can still probably get away with it on Strider and the original Contra, because those were pretty, the difficulty was very, very reasonable on those games. Still tough, but beatable. I played a ton of Strider, so. And certainly Contra. I think I played a lot of the original Contra. And not so much on the sequel, because the sequel is like so much more difficult than the original Contra was. So I ended up getting too frustrated with the Super C or Super Contra. But original Contra, I definitely conquered that game, even in the arcades. God. Okay, I think I played long enough. I'll have to keep trying on this one too. Boy, blazing lasers in this game just kicking my ass lately. Anyway, this is audap. You've been watching Vulcan Venture, a part of the Konami Anniversary Collection, or Arcade Classics. You can get this on Switch and on many other platforms. PlayStation 4, Xbox. It's not available on PC for whatever reason, but yeah, I highly suggest people pick this up. The arcade games are, they're all really winners. I don't think there's that many bad games in the bunch. In fact, I don't think there are any in this bunch. These are all classics, and they're still fun to play nowadays. Okay, Honda Castle does suck. So one bad game out of all the other ones. I think that's not too bad. Plus, you get the ability to play the Japanese versions as well. And generally, they're not too much different. Although in some cases, there were some fairly significant changes made. Yeah, check it out for yourself. I'll still keep hammering away at Gradius 2. Hopefully at some point in time we'll be able to actually get all the way through it. And with that, I hope you enjoyed watching, and I will see you at the next stream.